Cornhole Champions. I'm Zachary Oren-Smith. I'm sitting here with Avery Staker and Amy Rivers of Iowa Starting Line. We're kind of working our way through the headlines of this week. For our fourth story and last story, Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird is going after a county sheriff who dared to question federal immigration enforcement actions. Bird is pursuing a lawsuit against the Winneshiek County Sheriff, Dan Marks, over a Facebook post where he said his office would reject certain immigration detainer requests that weren't court approved. That would be unconstitutional detainer requests. And despite this guy's name being Marks, famous leftist, this is not I like to point out with this story that this is not, your progressive lefty sheriff. He's a sheriff, but this isn't like your guy who's really crusading on behalf of human rights. He has honored 21 detainer requests since 2018, right? Which are all the detainer requests that have been made out of his office. What Brenna Bird took issue with was that, he was being very clear in a Facebook post saying that if there are detainer requests that he deems unconstitutional, Dan Marks, as the principal law enforcement agent in that county, right, that he took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Not a radical standpoint, despite what some would have you believe. But Brenna Bird said that this Facebook post violated the sanctuary cities laws that were passed recently. And that he not only did he need to delete the post, but he needed to, she wanted to compel speech. She wanted to compel a specific first-person language disavowing the statements on Facebook.
Yeah, he needed to apologize to her.
Grovel even. Yeah, I think it's a super interesting one because, the outcome of the sanctuary cities kind of argument that Brenna Bird is making would be to remove the funding from the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Department. I'm not used to the Republicans being the folks to originate the defund the police argument so thoroughly, but here in 2025, here we are.
And the constitutional sheriff thing can't be constitutional anymore.
Right. We had a conversation with the county Republican Party for Winneshiek, who essentially said that Brenna Bird had come to the county prior to this all going down, and had made this big to-do about how the Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer for the state. And apparently both this county chair and Dan Marks took quite a bit of issue with this. You can check out that conversation on an earlier episode of Cornhole Champions.
This just seems like a lot over what was essentially just like a Facebook status update about county procedure. It's not like he got on Facebook and was like, Brenna Bird sucks, and also so does ICE.
Right.
He was just explaining the difference between two things that are different, which is an ICE detainer request and a judicial warrant.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. It's just we're doing the most here.
I mean, that's her brand though too, right? She doesn't actually care about what's wrong and fixing problems. She's caring about the very superficial things that seem to ruffle her feathers. That's always been her MO. There's also been a movement by the National Sheriff's Association threatening county sheriffs across the country to sign these 287G agreements, which is basically just an agreement that you're going to work with ICE or risk being listed publicly as sanctuary jurisdictions. And not only did no county sheriff in Iowa sign one of these things, the Dubuque County Sheriff was actually sent his county supervisors a letter saying because he's not signing it, they might have a target on their back, But it turned out that actually the tide is turning here. The fact that no county sheriff signed on should really be your first indication that the tide is turning. The only law enforcement agency in Iowa to sign one of these is Iowa Department of Public Safety, which is why you're seeing Iowa State Patrol sometimes crack down on immigration. And the other thing is there's also a movement. Escucha Mi Voz and Iowa City Catholic Worker are trying to compel people to call up, IDPS and Governor Reynolds and basically be get rid of this agreement. It's taking, people with no criminal records out of our communities, who are valued members of our communities, who are hard workers, yada, yada. So I think that the tide on this is somewhat changing, maybe, at least for regular people. Maybe Brenna Bird just hasn't gotten that memo.
I don't know.
Even then, Trump just... I think there was I don't know if it was a statement or what it was, but there something came out and Trump was like, they want ICE to stop cracking down on they wanted them to focus on like urban areas, on getting immigrants out of urban areas rather than going on
because
farms and other factories.
Because his quota, his quota has become so high that they're now having to go into workplaces and meatpacking plants. Oh, that's Trump's donors. He is definitely going to be hearing from them. That's why he was like, shut it down, you know, like.
The Wall Street Journal just had an article on the economic impact of like immigration crackdowns like this, and the Wall Street Journal said like, hey, this is bad because it from like an economic standpoint, from a financial standpoint, like you're pissing a lot of people off by like stealing their workers out from under their noses, and you know the inhumanity of it all is also terrible. But
yeah, I mean, Iowans know this. When they raided agri-processors in Postville in 2008, they took hundreds of workers out of that community, hundreds of community members. I mean, businesses shut down, restaurants shut down, housing was decimated. Like, there was the whole community was just devastated. I mean, it took a long time to come back. And if you're starting to see that at workplaces around these other little Iowa communities, people are going to notice and fight back against that, because that's a large part of your community. That's a big employer that donates a lot to, you know, various political campaigns. So yeah, that's definitely gonna be noticed.
I don't know that I'm as optimistic about what this means about the future of these kind of sheriff's departments and the extent to which their compliance can be. This is them challenging, right, the powers that be in their hardline stance against the immigrants that make up a large part of our workforce here in the state of Iowa. And that's only because like I feel like this very much comes out of the mentality, the like kind of sheriff, the like independent sheriff mentality, right? I feel like from a firmament, these are positions that attract highly independent operators, right? Folks that take the law very seriously. And they think, I mean, there's this like kind of culture that they are aware the buck stops, right? The extent to which there is a case made, they are these like kind of principal fact finders, these principal executors of justice as an elected law enforcement officer, right? The only police aren't elected,
right?
Sheriffs are. Right. And yeah, so like when I look into this, I just see sheriffs not quite being on board with, cowing towel to kind of whatever the federal government wants them to do, right? That's what I see is, right, I see I see a streak of independence that continues in, these law enforcement offices.
Is Brenna Bird going to send letters to all of them demanding?
Well, you've noticed that not a lot of them have made a point. And I think as a meta point, I think this is really interesting, right? Because like it's sort of like with Kim Reynolds' school voucher primary thing, right? So back when the school voucher bill didn't pass the first time because it didn't have uniform Republican support, Kim Reynolds primaried a bunch of people in her own party. She went after them, where they lived.
Yeah.
And the kind of outcome of that was that it passed no problem the next legislative session. What I think, when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking like, the extent to which a sheriff will be, sticking their leg out to be very clear with their community about what they expect and what they don't expect to enforce, right? And so I think like it just is, if I'm a sheriff, I may not want to step out of line if this is how the state is going. The state's going to call me a sanctuary, call my coverage area, sanctuary county, right? When, it could be further from the truth.
Which is why it's interesting that none of them signed those agreements.
The sheriff seeing the legality of it all, understanding their position enough and understanding their role enough to be like, this is not something that I agreed to when I wanted to become a sheriff. But then there's also like a lot of these stories coming out of communities rallying around their neighbors that are being taken from their jobs, and then those neighbors being returned to because their neighbors like raised enough hell about it, even in super like Trumpy areas. And so there's this two fronts that this sort of formerly super foundational, really strong issue that Republicans had and used to gain power is starting to sort of crack. And I'm interested to see how far that goes.
That was another episode of Cornhole Champions. If you like the show, here are some things you can do to support. Go subscribe to the show at our home on youtube.com. Like and subscribe to this episode to help us grow the platform. And get my newsletter to have these episodes right in your inbox every Wednesday morning when they come out. That's at cornholechampions.substack.com. To catch up on the work from Iowa Starting Line, follow us at Iowa Starting Line's Instagram and TikTok. Last, sign up for Iowa Starting Line's flagship newsletter at iowastartingline.com/newsletter. Cornhole Champions is a weekly podcast powered by Iowa Starting Line. This podcast is produced by me with music from Avery Mossman. Cornhole Champions is a proud member of the Iowa Writers Collaborative. We'll see you with a new episode next Wednesday. Until then, I'm Zachary Oren-Smith.
I'm Amy Rivers.
And I'm Avery Staker.
Thanks for listening.
Zach, spending so much time with you, I'm like morphing into you, starting to like have your takes, but in like a gay way.
Yeah, happy Pride Month, Zachary.
Amy, you're gonna be the only one that's like holding this newsroom together with us not getting canceled. Like,
I'm starting to have your takes.
Wouldn't be the first newsroom.
Me and Zach are just gonna be the most cancelable.
I'm starting to have the poetry that I'm starting to have your takes, but in a gay way.
But in a gay way.
But in a gay way.